So welcome to the last episode of the NMRA Train Show 2023. Definitely quite an adventure when it came to this train show. So definitely a lot of lessons learned that we kind of want to talk about in this video. Some things you didn't see from the previous two episodes was us complaining about a lot of little nitpicky things throughout this train show that we kind of wanted to wrap up in one video. But overall, we'll give you guys kind of the good, the bad, and things that we've learned for the next train show. So I'm Rayron VR.
And I'm Fairy
VR. So we're going to go ahead and talk about some of those things. So I guess we can just talk about straight from the beginning. Just getting there was definitely quite a challenge because we got...
it was trauma, to say the least, for everyone involved.
Let's just say that we almost didn't make it to the train show just because there was a lot of life things happening behind the scenes, especially with these
Our fur children are seniors, and for anybody who owns pets, cats and dogs, you guys know anything over 5 years old is questionable as to how much further they have to go. And pretty much all of our fur babies are, they're either 10 or they're almost 10.
Now, you guys probably don't see, but we have Panda Bell. I don't know if Panda Bell's going to be able to get into focus here. But this is our Black Lab Shepherd Husky mixed puppy. She's definitely a senior. We got Kikumon kind of floating
cruising,
around,
but you can't see him.
We've got one dog here. We've got 3 cats, and that's definitely an issue when it comes to traveling. I know you guys
lots of health issues that we have to monitor, and it's just there's just a lot of details surrounding them, and they are our first priority. Like having fun at the train show was secondary. Like that was a bonus that we got to have. Their health was a priority for us.
So yeah, that was definitely interesting, but we were able to go, as you guys saw from the first 2 episodes. So let's talk about kind of the hotel situation. So we stayed at the Town Suite Hotel, sponsored by Marriott. The hotel was fine. The pets were comfortable in it. The breakfast wasn't that great. She didn't eat the breakfast. I did a couple times. It was free complimentary. It was fine. The whole Gaylord area and of Grapevine was definitely one of our biggest complaints about the train show, is that it was specifically selected, in my opinion, based off of, the average train show NMRA convention goer. So you basically had the convention themselves. And
I'm not 100% sure that that's like an accurate depiction. Whenever you're talking about resorts, if anybody's familiar with Dirty Dancing, how Baby and her family were at a resort and Baby got bored and she ran off with the staff to go have some fun. That was very true of where we found ourselves. There was a lot of stuff that catered to the 50-plus crowd. Yep. These are people who have been employed for 20-plus years, close to retirement or retired, that, they're trying to do something fun with their family, but they're not really taking into consideration their kids and grandkids as much as their own comforts. So we found that the meals were, there was like a 30-minute window to get meals.
Let's pay a little bit of context here. So that was the Gaylord Resort.
That's a Gaylord Resort. That's not the hotel we stayed at. That was it was a little bit more catering to people who frequent the airlines, and so a lot of business people.
The whole purpose of this resort, the Gaylord Resort, was that the whole concept behind it is that you had the NMRA convention itself.
Yeah.
Excuse me, you had the resort, you had the convention itself, and then you had the train show that was 3 days that was open to the public.
Yeah.
The big issue that we found was that it was a resort. It was kind of isolated. As Ferry was saying,
2 miles to the nearest McDonald's. No, actually 2 miles to the nearest fast food anything.
Again, it's a nitpick. Again, we love our fast food.
Between 2 to 5 miles away from like Walmarts and Targets and any If you need shopping and conveniences, like, you had to drive for it.
Yeah.
Because around this resort, there was 3, 4, maybe 5 other resorts that were equally as isolated. You had an airport, and airports are massive. And so, yeah, just, to find anything convenient was a stretch.
Yeah, and again, the resort had their own restaurants, but it was very particular to obviously the guests of the Gaylord Resort, which again,
a lot of them, you needed a reservation, and that meant you needed to have a room at the resort.
But again, they didn't accept pets, so that was a really struggle for us.
And that's why we ended up staying at the other hotel.
Yeah, that's why I stayed at the other hotel. So when we got there on Friday, we toured the facility on the Friday morning.
No, we got there Thursday.
Yeah, we got there Thursday.
And we walked around a bit.
Yeah, so we walked around a little bit to figure out the layout of the area.
Yeah.
And it was Friday morning. We got there early because that's when the first train show was. And there was signs everywhere posting that if you're a member, well, then it was weird because the sign said train show admittance 10 a.m. for membership. They weren't really clear on what that membership meant on that sign, and that was my biggest frustration. Was that
I don't think it actually mentioned members. It was like early access, but it didn't mention who got early access. We asked some of the resort staff.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we purchased online. We've got a QR code. Who do we need to talk to? It's like, oh, you can't get in until 1.
Yeah.
And so at 1 o'clock, there will be a booth or a table or something set up over here, and you would be talking to them. Well, when that time came around, that situation hadn't been set up. There was no table. There was no booth right there. Yeah. And so it was still pretty confusing as to the situation. Come to find out, you had to go to the other end of the resort, and we ended up finding out that some of the communications we were getting from the resort staff about our tickets we had purchased were completely wrong, because we did have access to the early access, and I think in theory we probably could have gone in on Thursday too.
Yes. So let me provide a little bit more context to that. So what happened was I bought the tickets online.
Yeah.
And you guys have seen it from my past streams that it is a convention plus the show. Originally, I brain farted and thought I just bought a general members or general admissions ticket to the actual train shows. But what I actually had purchased was a ticket to the entire convention plus 2 days of the train show. Now, the train show was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the way the NMRA presented it to the NMRA membership online was that you can buy either a Friday and Saturday ticket, or you can buy a Saturday, Sunday ticket. And I wish, if you're paying as an NMRA member, you would think you can get admission to all 3 days. And that wasn't an option, nor was a Friday, Sunday ticket, which I wish they had, because that worked out perfectly in our situation. But because I had the mini print scan on Saturday, we went to go see the Big Boy 4018 on a Saturday. Yeah. We barely had enough recording. Luckily, we had like an hour plus of edited footage for you guys. But I wish there was more options to the train show. And so we got there on Friday.
And I wish the resort staff had been a little bit more informed about what was happening on their property.
Yeah. And that was a little bit of frustration, but by day 2, they finally figured it out. And I think the NMRA staff figured out, we need to tell these guys to go to here, and here.
Yeah.
And have a representative at the registration booth, because on day 2, a lot of people ran into our situation. They ordered the tickets online, and they finally started directing them to the registration booth. And you saw that from my first video, that if you purchase these tickets online through the NMRA proper, then you got to go to the registration booth, which is separate from the general admissions ticket booth of the train show proper. So there was 2 separate entities that wasn't really advertised as much, or I misread it in an email somewhere. But either way, I know I wasn't the only one having an issue, because
there was a lot of other people asking the exact same questions we had been.
So again, just feedback to, if any NMRA staff sees this video, just feedback that we got just as a normie when it comes to these train shows.
Because this was our first train show. Yeah. This was our very first train show. This is the first year we are NMRA members. And so we are very new to all of this. But I know that this convention had been very publicly promoted. I'm pretty sure that there was non-members from the general public, maybe in the Dallas area, that might have, gone to take their kids to see some cool stuff over the weekend. And so, people who aren't in the know, who haven't gone every single year for 2 decades and don't know how these sort of things function, I think that's kind of like what we were experiencing and learning through this process.
It was quite a learning curve, and I tell you what, between the both of us, there was a lot of drama trying to figure out how everything was going to work. Yeah. Were we going to stay there for the entire time between 10 a.m.? Because we got there around 10 a.m., show didn't start till like 1 p.m., and so we were, bickering back and forth, trying to figure out on what to do. But man, it was a bad learning curve. And then the other big drama behind all this was parking. Holy crap.
$20 for 2 hours. I've never seen parking prices that expensive. And so when we got there,
at least for us,
and then we found out, the things that we're interested in aren't going to start until later. Is there something else we can do at this resort? There should be. There's not. What are we going to do? So yeah, there, it's like, hey, I'm hungry. What am I going to do? Well, like, there's a Starbucks on site, but the food wasn't great.
That was about the only thing that was open was a Starbucks.
Yeah.
That was our other criticism, was that food options were
very limited.
It was like your typical, like, convenience store they had at the resort. But as far as the main restaurants, they weren't open.
It's like, I didn't
and
want
limited hours.
Yeah, I didn't want cotton candy for breakfast. Yeah. Like, that was not something that I was wanting to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, food was definitely very.
So, and again, that could be on us. Let's make sure we get groceries before we go to things. But
our hotel room did have a small kitchenette, and we did fill it.
Yeah.
So Saturday, Sunday, we did have some breakfast options for me, so that I'm not having to risk some diabetic freaking health emergency. It's like I needed to make sure I had breakfast. I needed to make sure I had lunch.
Yeah.
That wasn't gonna, put me at risk.
And again, typically we try to plan for these things, but it's just because of the isolation of the resort itself really caught us off guard, and because there was so many events in short amount of time, it was kind of difficult to actually go to a Walmart or something, get groceries, and then
like
come
I said, Walmart was like 5 miles away.
Yeah.
Somewhere between 2 to 5 miles away.
And depending on traffic, it can raise that. But again, it was definitely a lesson learned for us that we got to plan on in the future, and just lessons learned that we're sharing with you guys.
Yeah.
Again, you guys may be travel experts already, so it's just kind of for those who are novice to all this like ourselves, that we just want to share these experiences. So yeah, parking was definitely interesting.
Parking was frustrating.
Every time and that was because it was isolated and because you had to go out, that's $20 each time you go to that parking garage.
And that's one reason why it's like, yeah, we may be miserable here, but we're gonna stick it out and try to make the best of this situation. Because, it's like if I get there 15 minutes goes by and it's like the only thing that I can eat for sale is cotton candy or potato chips or, chocolate chip cookies. Like I can only have so much of that in a 24-hour period. I'm not going to be eating that kind of food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. So it's like, are we going to leave 15 minutes after we parked to go find a place that's 30 minutes away to get a healthier option?
And that's $40 in parking fees.
That would have been, and so it's like, well, if something happens with the pets and we need a vet bill, if something happens with the car and we need to get like a tire puncture repaired or something. We need to make sure that we've got that safety net. And so, $20, $40, $60, it would rack up eventually.
Yeah.
And we weren't willing to do that. And we even asked our hotel if there was a shuttle from our hotel to there, and they basically said primarily the shuttle is to get people to and from the airport. If there's 2 shuttles running, they might be able to spare one to get you over. But then how would we get back?
Yeah.
You know,
so
if
that
there's
was definitely not
if there's
a correct
only
option.
one shuttle running when we're ready to come back home, you know, there was a lot of moving pieces that just made the experience for us a super frustrating one.
But that's all behind the scenes stuff. So again, that's all the criticisms we had. Basically, isolation and definitely the food options were kind of hit or miss.
But I think a lot of people were having the same issues because when I was talking to people at the that were promoting the 2024 and the 2025 conventions, they were all saying that we're not going to make this mistake again. The areas where the next 2 conventions are going to be, they're in populated areas. You've got a lot more shopping options. Things are going to be a lot more affordable. You've got more hotel options, a more diverse price range for those hotel options.
This was by far,
you're gonna have more fast food options around the venue, not 2 to 5 miles away.
And you want to talk about price. So again, the food options that were there, it was definitely expensive.
So a lot of people were complaining about the same things we were.
Yeah, so you want to talk about price. So I don't mind sharing this because if you're going to go to an NMRA convention, it's going to be expensive. At least this one's definitely the most expensive, I think, from the feedback we've been seeing from all the vendors there, that this was one of the most expensive train shows to go to. And we spent about $2,500 for this trip just because of the pets, the hotel, the parking, and the food was insanely expensive. Yeah. So this was by far the most expensive train show we've gotten.
And for people that went for the full 7 or 8 days,
I can only imagine.
That hotel cost would have gone up even further.
And that makes a great point too. So this whole, it's not just a train show. It is a convention that has a train show attached onto it. So one of the big lessons learned if you're going to do an NMRA convention is that try to plan for the whole thing, because we found our biggest value from the NMRA
was the clinics. But we missed and the home layout tours. And the home layout tours, they were offering bus rides to some local museums that we had been talking about visiting anyway. And a lot of that ended up happening in the first 5 days before we got there.
So we missed
because we couldn't afford the hotel for that.
We missed a lot of the clinics, but the 2 that we went to were great.
Great, absolutely.
Bernard from Mini Prints held his figurines 101 painting class.
Yeah.
And then we went to Dawn's.
Don Wynn's gave a presentation on kit bashing.
Yeah, kit bashing was really good.
Which was amazing.
So those clinics are worth its gold.
Yeah.
And I know some clinics offered you have to pay for it because they give you the supplies, but I think it's still worth it. And overall, if you go to those clinics, that's where you're going to get your money's worth from the actual price of the convention itself. So between the both of us, it was about $125 per person to do the actual convention and the train show if you get 2 days of the train show. If you think about it, the 2 Scale Trains cars that we got with our welcome bag for registering online, those were
would have paid for it all by itself.
Close. So there were $65 a piece being sold at the NMRA registration booth, and that comes to about 1 ticket. But then if you go to the other, if you go to the train show for 2 days, that's another about $30 per day, so about $60. And then you've got the early access to that, which is nice. And then if you go to plenty of the clinics, that's where you're going to make up your money for the ticket price.
But another thing to think about too is that the engine that we got, that Scale Trains made for this convention alone, yes, they were selling some for like $60 or so, but outside of this convention, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it at all.
Yeah.
So 10 years from now, this thing that could have been purchased for $60 is now worth twice that.
Yeah. So in time, it'll pay up.
Yeah.
The cost that we did will easily
and that's what I'm saying. That engine all by itself is going to make up
freight car
the car that we got. It's still going to make up for the fact that everything was so expensive.
Yeah.
Because over time it'll appreciate in value and it'll be worth more than what we paid.
But
for
again,
this entire
we're not planning to sell
convention.
these things.
We're never gonna sell. No,
we're collectors.
We're
I mean,
not.
just look.
We're not gonna sell it. Like, this was a priceless item to us.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
For purposes.
Yeah.
That.
So once we figured out the badge system, the rest of the train show was awesome.
Yeah.
We had a great time. We were there for, like I said, all day Friday. We were there. Saturday, we couldn't be there for the full day like we wanted to because again we had the full body scan for Mini Prince, and then we went to go see 4018, and then we didn't have a ticket for Sunday. And Sunday we were trying to figure out where we were going to stay another day, where we were going to tour the Dallas area. And
we were talking about maybe doing the zoo in the morning and then going to like the 6th floor museum. And for anybody who doesn't know, that's also the JFK museum. We were talking about doing those on Sunday, but when we toured the big boy, we were outside for somewhere between 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, and it was like 106.
And yeah, I don't know exactly.
We were KO'd after that.
Yeah, like I was really disappointed that museum facility was very limited on seating options. Because you're coming in from the heat. It's like they did sell bottled water, and it was not ridiculously expensive. You could get a nice ice cold bottled water for $1, and so that was absolutely perfect, absolutely wonderful. The train museum did have some old benches from
and you guys will see the video. I think this video is actually going to come out before that museum. So basically, this was the Frisco Discovery Center that had multiple sub-museums attached to it. There was a video game museum.
But I think because you were getting so hot, you've got outside of the train portion, there wasn't any seating.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a problem. Because it's like you come in from doing the big boy thing, and if you had already toured the inside of the train thing and this is the last thing you were doing, then there's really no place to sit unless you want to go into the bathroom and sit on the toilet for 20 minutes.
There was definitely lack of seating there. But again, you guys will see that all in that video.
Yeah.
But again, that was my biggest critique of that place.
But they did have a drinking fountain in the hallway.
Yeah, they had a drinking fountain. They had a G-scale layout there that was part of Traintopia, as they called it.
And the train museum itself did have some benches.
Yeah.
Some benches.
But they're planning on trying to get a whole outdoor podium for all the trains to get covered. It was nice. They got a lot of engines. 4018 was the big one that we wanted to go, and we were able to go inside of it, which was nice. And I got footage for you guys and photos. They had GG1 there. They had Centennial that was there. It was a great experience overall. It's just, it was hot. So once we were done there, then we basically booked it back to the hotel. She rested for the rest of the day.
But it's like, I think that experience doing that and just feeling how much hotter it is in Dallas than it has been in San Antonio.
It was hot.
I think that just is, like, it was the nail in the coffin for wanting to stay and maybe do the zoo the next day.
No,
because
we killed it.
If that's how we feel in 20 minutes, then how are we going to do 2 to 4 hours?
Yeah.
I mean, the animals would have been great. But would have had enough energy to go over to the 6th floor museum afterwards and been functional?
Yeah.
I feel like if we had done that, that would have been an emergency room visit for sure.
Yeah. So Sunday we decided to come back home on Sunday, which was a good call because our air conditioning in the vehicle went out
when we hit Austin.
Yeah, we hit Austin. And then I started to feel like, where's the cold air? Where's the cold air? I pressed all the buttons trying to get the AC working, and it crapped out completely. So we were hot with 4 animals coming back.
3
animals.
3 animals.
Yep. Because 1 stayed here.
Yeah.
We had 3 animals coming back. They were complaining. Our cats were screaming. And it's like, it was kind of miserable past Austin coming back home, but we made it home.
We cracked all of the windows, had the sunroof open. Like, we were trying to get as much airflow through that car as we possibly could. But, yeah, that was an experience.
It was an experience. So we're going to try to get that fixed in a couple days. But, yeah, this is definitely kind of the behind-the-scenes stuff. Typically, we don't do these type of videos, but I think for the NMRA, it's something worth telling because we learned a crap
A
ton of
lot.
lessons. We're newbies when it came to this convention. And if this helps anyone plan a future NMRA train show visit, hopefully this experience and lessons learned can help you out. So that's why we figured, you know what, it's time to do this. And you'll probably see a lot more of Fairy on the channel. Again, she's the one that's doing the N scale and Lego scale content, and you guys saw her a lot on episode at the convention with episodes 1 and 2. And so yeah, and apparently a lot of you wanted to see more of her, so because very inspirational in the hobby, which I definitely appreciate for.
I definitely want to put myself out there a little bit more. It's not always easy. I mean, I'm very subconscious about my weight and my appearances, because I feel like I may come across as like the crazy cat lady.
You know.
But yeah, like I'll brave it eventually. Slowly, baby steps.
Yeah.
That's where we're gonna go. But I am passionate about the hobby. Like, I have so many great things to say about model trains. You know, I feel like there's a lot of social experiences. I feel like there's a lot of educational moments. This could be a really great tool to educate children in ways that the public education system has failed our children a little bit. And so I do want to be passionate about model trains and promoting it to families with kids, because, you know,
it truly represents the STEM aspect of just education as a whole, because you get woodworking, you get electrical, you get scenery, which is something you're definitely big into.
Yeah, but when you're talking about running trains, it's like you got to make sure that you're not like running into someone else's train. With operations, you've got a dispatcher and yard masters, and there's all this communication. Like, there's so much value that children can learn from that, because all over the news we see, you know, kids shooting up schools. You see, you know, kids causing all this trouble, like they have no respect for anything anymore. But I think if kids were to get into a hobby like model railroading, it could keep them out of trouble. It could keep them off of drugs. It could keep them.
Well, they always say it's cheaper than therapy, so.
Yeah. Like, there's so, like I said, there's so much value in model railroading for families with kids that that's why I get passionate about this, because I respect and I value that so much. Yeah.
So, I think we've been kind of rambling a little too much now, so we'll go ahead and we'll cut it short there. But again, this is more of lessons learned when it comes to the hobby. And probably be more content like this in the future. So if you guys liked it, let me know. Hit the subscribe button, like button, and make a comment down below. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on the next video.